check in
Hi,
with
everyone. Dr. Mandy Cohen from CDC.
Got to stop it. Sorry, I was going to let this play. Check in with Dr. Mandy Cohen, for those of you who are listening on podcast. Oh, my.
Hi, everyone. Dr. Mandy Cohen from CDC. And we are only 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving. And I want to remind you to take steps right now to protect you and your family from COVID, flu, and RSV before the holidays. I know many folks are thinking, well, I've had COVID or I've already been vaccinated. But this new COVID vaccine is updated to match the changes in the virus and restore protection that does decrease over time. It's similar to the flu shot you get every year. The updated COVID-19 vaccine is recommended for everyone 6 months and older, and it's free for everyone, either through your insurance or through a CDC vaccine program.
You heard right. 6 months and older.
They're available at pharmacies and health centers around the country. These vaccines are safe. They've been through extensive safety review through both CDC and FDA independent committees, academic groups, and more. If you have concerns, please talk to your doctor or nurse practitioner. So let's all make sure to have a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. Now's the time to get your shots to better protect you from serious illness from these viruses. Make your plan to get your COVID and flu shot today. Be well.
Be well. I'm gonna play that one more time. I gotta tell you something. Stop. It's enraging. It's enraging, and I observe things that I say maybe I should not be observing, but I know that if I'm observing them, chances are other people as well. We're gonna play through this step by step. And just for the YouTube overlords, I'm not giving any medical advice. It's an amazing thing. I don't deem doctors' professional opinions to be misinformation. In the absence of a medical degree, YouTube, the non-licensed medical practitioners practicing medicine. I'm just going to pay attention to the verbiage of this CDC broadcast. Check in with Dr. Cohen.
Hi, everyone. Dr. Mandy Cohen from CDC. And we are only 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving. And I want to remind you to take steps right now to protect you and your family from COVID, flu, and RSV before the holidays.
Hypothetically, even assuming everything worked as planned 2 weeks out, would that be enough time to protect you for Thanksgiving? How does it protect you for Thanksgiving, ma'am, doctor, if you can still contract, which is now indisputable fact? How does it? It protects you by minimizing the risk of severe COVID?
I know many folks are thinking, well, I've had COVID or I've already been vaccinated. But this new COVID vaccine is updated to match the changes in the virus and restore protection that does decrease over time.
Which variation, what's the word I'm looking for? Mutation does this updated COVID shot apply to? Which one is it? Is it the current strain or is it the 2 strains ago? I don't know. I'm just asking the questions. But wait for the gem.
It's similar to the flu shot you get every year.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure that I get the flu shot every year. I'm not sure that 6-month-old kids get the flu shot every year.
The updated COVID-19 vaccine is recommended for everyone 6 months and older.
Monsters. How can anybody do this? You heard Hochul out of New York say this? I know it sounds young. Oh, you're damn right, Hochul, it sounds young.
And it's free for everyone.
Oh, free. It's free. You know what they say? If the product is free, you're the product.
Either through your insurance or through a CDC vaccine program.
Look how she looks so nice and sweet. She wouldn't possibly be up. I don't want to impute negative intentions, but she looks so sweet. She's a great spokesperson. She looks naive, little bumbly, little cutesy. Like, you wouldn't think that this person would be giving you, potentially questionable professional medical advice, selling out that Pfizer pharma shot there, because Pfizer's bottom line is not looking so good this year. It's funny what happens after the panic quells off and then people start, actually seeing some data. All of a sudden, the product is not so good anymore. Pfizer starts not making the billions that it made in 2021.
They're available at pharmacies and health centers around the country. These vaccines are safe.
Oh, that's interesting. Once upon a time, it was safe and effective. These vaccines are safe.
These vaccines are safe.
I'm missing a word there. I'm missing a word that I thought I remembered hearing for the last 2 years. Oh, it went from safe and effective to safe with an asterisk.
Been through extensive safety review through both CDC and FDA independent committees.
And they just wanted 75 years, Pfizer, to supply that data.
Academic groups, and more. If you have concerns, please talk to your doctor or nurse.
I'm done with this. And you know what drives me absolutely crazy? And it drives me crazy that I have to notice this. The Chai necklace focused prominently in between her cleavage on this video. Prominently. You can't miss it. You can't miss it. It's like rubbing it in your face. As if to say, well, we can't criticize her now because any criticism of Dr. Mandy Cohen is going to be chalked up to anti-Semitism now. Any criticism of Albert Bourla going to be chalked up to anti-Semitism. What better way to shield yourself from criticism? Flaunt your identity politics for the world to see. It's like the people who, as a Christian, and then proceed to do certain things, flaunting it in your face so that they can shield themselves from the obvious criticism. And my goodness, for the product that Mandy is promoting on the people right now, this does damage. This does damage that is irreparable and that is indescribable. I'm sorry I have to notice it, but my goodness, if I notice it, chances are other people notice it as well. Just sitting right there. So nice. While we're selling you a product, it's free though, pushing a product on 6 months old and up, despite all indications that something is rotten in Denmark. Excess deaths. Oh, it's amazing that excess deaths are greater after the Schmendrick than during. It's amazing. Keep pushing this crap.
So let's all make sure to have a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. Now's the time to get your shots to better protect you from serious illness from these viruses.
Oh, of course.
Make your plan to get your COVID and flu shot.
Oh, she's doing the Bill Clinton. She's doing the Bill Clinton thing with her thumb. A little pointing out here. Here. Where is it there? I did not have sexual relations with that woman. This makes me angry and it makes me sick. Oh, yeah, and by the way, if you get injured, tough shit. Can't sue anybody. But they've been immunized. So the product is so safe and so effective, they would only bring it to market if they were immunized from all liability. Serenity now. Lord, give me the strength and the wisdom. Give me the courage to change the things I can. The wisdom to, gosh darn it, I forget what it is, and the wisdom to tell the difference between that which I can change and that which I can't. Horrendous. Horrendous, and everybody knows, including her, what she's doing by focusing that Chai front and center right between her cleavage prominently. Everybody's going to see it. And then they're going to say, "Oh my goodness, the backlash that I'm getting, it's only because I'm Jewish." No, you could have taken that off for your video to push that stuff on people. You could have taken it off. You're not giving a religious speech. You're not giving a sermon. It has no business there any more than a cross prominent. And if there were a cross on there and someone were doing something that you think is sinful, my goodness, you would juxtapose the purported faith with the what I would argue is the sinful conduct. Oh, okay. Now hold on. Before I get into the super chats, let me just make sure that we are live everywhere. We're live on Rumble. Are we live on vivabarneslaw.locals.com? We're live on vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Okay, and I feel guilty I feel guilty making that observation. I'll get accused of everything. I was telling someone, you get accused of being a Zionist, an anti-Semite, a left-wing snowflake, a far-right extremist. I get accused of all of it in any given day. It's wonderful. And it's not because I'm sitting on a fence, people. It's like I'm not walking in the middle of the highway getting hit by traffic from both sides. I think I'm just speaking truth. Not my truth. The truth. Get accused of everything under the sun. Let me get some super chats, Rumble ads. Oh, the standard disclaimers. No medical advice, no election fortification advice, no legal advice, but I will call out the bullshit when I see it. And I'm sorry, I swore twice tonight. I swore twice and I haven't even had any of the Uncle Val's botanical gin, which I'm going to have later on. Oh no, where's my mug? The only reason I have that here is because I wanted to show my mug, the Viva Fry merch. Okay, Cheryl Gagey, first Anthony Weiner, then Geraldo Rivera, now Judge Engora. Please, Lord, don't let Hillary Clinton post any nude selfies. Well, as we're going to see tonight, you don't even have to post the nude selfies in order for someone to post nude selfies, because you can use AI now to generate fake nudies of people. Just waiting for Viva nudes to be on the internet. Big Pharma, thou doth protest too much, says Jeremiah_Dick Fitzwell. Yes, I don't know, but by the way, just keep pushing it. It's like that metaphor from the movie on the Rwandan genocide of the children soldiers. The children soldiers kill the first victim, and then they continue to kill more and more. And it's not because it means less and less to them to kill somebody; it's because they wanted to. They want to dull the horrors of what they've done, and they think by killing more, it's going to somehow dilute the horror of what they've done. This is where we're at with the jibby jab. Is my personal belief. USMC, so that's United States Marine Corps Burroughs. No election fortification advice, no legal advice, no medical advice. Super chat 30%, Rumble 20% better for creator. Keep up the good work, gents. Sir, thank you very much. And to the extent it was Veterans Day yesterday, thank every veteran out there for their service. Even if I will wildly disagree with their current politics. There was that one where I got into a fight with Duckworth. I know her name as Duck. I'm not trying to be mean. It was the Duckworth who Iraq wounded veteran pushing the war in Ukraine. And I say, pushing the war in Ukraine. Send your kids. Don't be a coward. Send your kids to the war. And then people are like, she's a veteran. It's like, doesn't change the perspective on the current disagreement on politics. But yes, and one might want to learn for having served in wars that were built on lies. One would think one would learn about that. That said, no but. Thank every veteran. Thank you for your service. And I hope everyone had a meaningful Veterans Day. I don't think it's supposed to be happy. It's supposed to be meaningful. Shouldn't flu shots be mandatory for public good? I hope. Not a band account. I hope that's sort of a joke. But Pasha Moyer, this doctor seems like such a liar. Now I'm not even sure if we are actually about 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving, like she said. Tony Savage, what's the difference between a chickpea and a garbanzo bean? I've never had a garbanzo bean on my face. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Does that mean the CDC is stating SV40 is safe? I don't know what that means. And one more. I'll answer all locals questions, $2.99 to $4.99 plus legal medical advice, Tony Savage. All right, Barnes is coming sooner than later. But before he gets here, look, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a number of stuff. Barnes is going to go through the list. What I wanted to talk about was one before. It was going to segue into it, but to the extent we have a few minutes now, and I've got a ton of stuff on the back burner. I've got my bookmarks for tomorrow's show. No, you know what? Let's just go with one more that's gonna irritate everybody. I hear a dog scratching at the door. I think people have gotten fed up with Greta Thunberg's garbage. Listen to this. People are fed up. What does it say? I'm fed up with your SHIT. I'll stop right now. This is Greta Thunberg at, I don't know what it is. It says, the crisis is nu. The crisis is nu. Oh, I don't know what that means. It's not a language I speak. Listen to this.
We have not been listening. The people in power have not been listening.
I have come here for a climate demonstration, not a political view.
I mean, this guy looks like he's had enough, but thankfully not the way that guy, the American in Panama, had enough. This guy's like, I came here for a climate stuff. Can you not infuse your ignorant politics in it? And then listen to this. That's not even the kicker. Calm down, old man. The 18-year-old girl who knows nothing from nothing is talking. Now, what was I saying?
Calm down.
Oh, now I come back to saying something about that I know nothing about. Listen to this.
No climate justice on occupied land. No climate justice on occupied land. We have not been listening.
No climate justice on occupied land. It's a level of stupid that is beyond words. It's a level of disgusting opportunism. People talk about grift, and I don't use the word grifter very often. I believe I've called Greta Thunberg a grifter. No climate crisis on occupied land. Can you think of a more callous, shameless grift than to co-opt the suffering of innocent Palestinians with your climate crisis agenda. A lot of people, set aside whatever you think about the current flare-up of violence in the Middle East. A lot of people say, where were all of these people during the Syrian massacres? Where were all of these people during the Libyan massacre? Where were all of these people when actual slavery is currently going on in Libya after another successful U.S. intervention in foreign policy? Where were all of these people then? The answer is 99% of them were not saying a bloody thing. There were no protests in London. There were no protests in Montreal. There were no protests in New York. They were not saying a bloody thing because they don't know a damn thing. And you know what the reality is? They don't know a damn thing about the conflict in the Middle East either. It might be a little bit easier to understand because you're seeing more footage of it. And they think they can separate this into a clear dichotomy. They were silent on all of the other crises and international disasters, slaughters, because they didn't care. They had no idea it was going on, is the degree to which they don't care. And they had no opinion of it. Why do people care or purport to care or jumping on the bandwagon right now during this conflict? Because they co-opt the suffering of innocent Palestinians for their own politics. Whether that politics is anti-Israel, whether or not that politics is BLM, whether or not that politics is climate crisis. Piggyback off the suffering of innocent people just because it's the cool one to jump on the bandwagon of. Yeah, people know jack squat. The last cool one to jump on and pretend you were an expert in Eastern European political geopolitics. Ukraine, Russia. Nobody even heard about it. No one knew what happened in 2014. No one has a damn idea what's going on there. But it became the social media craze. Everyone became an expert. Now, it's Israel-Palestine. The third uprising in my life. There were the two intifadas in like 90-something, 2002. These cycles of violence come, same way plays out every single time. People only care and people pretend to care so they can leech off of the suffering of innocent Palestinians for the no climate crisis on occupied land. Disgusting. No other word for it. Oh, but at least some people are starting to get a little fed up with her crap. A girl who knows nothing about anything. I don't even know that she graduated from high school yet because she's been on strike for the last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Who the hell knows? When was How Dare You? Been on strike, knows nothing, and yet has the most radical opinions on the most complex scientific matters and political matters. Oh, okay, before we get into the next story. Here's a good low-calorie drink I invented that goes nicely with floral and boreal gins. 1/3 gin, 1/3 pure cranberry juice, 1/3 zero-sugar Monster energy drink. That would be kick-ass. DTQC. Okay. Now, but before we get into it, we'll see where Barnes is. I did send him the link. He's got the link. Okay. One of the subjects we're going to talk about tonight is the New York... what do they call him? He's a vigilante or he's a good Samaritan. Just depends on which side of the political spectrum you're on this. The New York guy who pulled a gun fired a couple of warning shots to scare off a person who was mugging, a homeless person who was mugging a woman in the metro. Remember, intervene like Daniel Penny, and if the guy dies, you get charged with murder. Don't intervene and... Who was it that just got stabbed to death? I mean, it's just, it's arrested if you do, dead if you don't. Out of California, there was one that I saw on, it on Dan Bongino, and he was saying this is why everybody needs to know how to use a firearm, know how to protect yourself. And it was this guy who pulled his concealed carry to fight off home intruders in LA. And here, we'll play it. This is the best I could find, so here, let's just do this here.
Asian caught on camera.
Here we go. This
the
is
unsuspecting homeowner winds up pulling a gun on his attackers.
We'll see if this guy gets charged. I mean, but it's the video that I want to show you because when Bongino played, he says, "This is like, look at this," and I watched it and I said, it almost looks choreographed. Not saying it is. I'm just saying, like, I'm so cynical right now. Well, we'll get there in a second. Look at this.
Terrifying surveillance video shows a masked intruder with a gun run up to this mid-city man about to walk in his front door. The homeowner pulls out his gun to defend himself, firing shots at the two intruders, quickly entering a shootout.
I guess they decided to try to come at me and come in the house, but I have a 5-month-old baby and a wife, nanny in the house, and that wasn't going to happen. There was nothing in my house that was worth dying for, but I was willing to die for my family.
The shootout happened Saturday night around 7:30. The homeowner walks to the front door, grabbing for his keys.
CCTV, perfect framing.
One intruder runs up to the front door. The Mid-City man throws his tea, pulls out his gun, and starts shooting.
And I don't know why I felt someone run up behind me, put something to my back, and then...
Anyways, so I said on the one hand, it looks choreographed, but that's what practice would be. Anyone who is trained, it is choreographed because you've practiced it over and over and over again. But I've gotten so bloody cynical in my young age. I came across an article where I'm starting to think, I'm starting to think, if this turns out, if this is going to turn out, who the hell knows what's going to turn out to be not a hoax, but potentially a hoax, or B, is this guy going to end up getting charged by the corrupt city officials who don't prosecute crime? But I saw this article, and is it ABC? Okay, this is the article on the subject. The 43-year-old man has been... No. That's the wrong one. That's the other one. Get that out of here. Viva, get your notes together. Man charged. No, that's not it. Woman rescued. Decision on 14th Amendment. Oh, here we go. Armed homeowner. Miss Scusi. Yes, I had to go to Fox. So in order to use Fox, I went to Archive. Armed homeowner who defended home in shootout unloads on liberal politicians. Not going to care. I read this article and then I started getting a little more suspicious. Like, my goodness, if this turns out to be a choreographed, rehearsed, stage type thing, maybe done for a good reason to raise awareness of rising crime in California. I was like, I'm cynical, but then I read this article. Listen to this. Okay, concealed carry, we're going to go through it really quickly. Every single person I know has gotten stuck up, this guy says. LA entrepreneur Vince Ricci told Fox News it's not normal. Ricci said he was returning to his gated Los Angeles home Saturday evening after hitting the gym when the armed men jumped his fence. Out of nowhere, boom, I had a gun to my back. And there was another guy running at me at the same time. I couldn't really make out what he was saying. Okay, fine. The attempted home invasion unfolded just before 7:30 p.m. when Ricci's wife, they were in the home with their 5-month-old daughter. Security captured the thing. Los Angeles entrepreneur said he was leisurely walking to his front door while listening to an audiobook that captivated his attention when he noticed men approaching him. The video shows Ricci holding a cup of hot tea, digging out his keys from his pocket, when a man wearing a hoodie, aiming a gun, ran up to the homeowner. Ricci, who noted his tea was too hot to drink from at the time, is seen walloping the man in the face with the beverage before pulling his own firearm. It was burning my hand, and I couldn't wait to go into the house and put it down. I effing slammed it into his face, the tea. Ricci, he's a concealed carry, grabbed his gun. This is where I started. He says, I'm not John Wick, but I can handle myself well. As I went to grab the gun, he turned and he's holding my sleeve. I think so I wouldn't hit him. And when I get the gun, I shook him off. He backed up and went to turn around. I charged at him. Okay. This is where. The other suspect, however, was pulling out his own firearm and squared off for a gunfight. At that point, I knew I was getting shot by the other guy. Bongino referred to it as a fatal funnel. When you're in a narrow corridor, he said bullets ride walls. They get stuck. He said you're basically stuck in a corridor and nowhere to go. Okay, but this is it. Listen to this. At this point, I was getting shot, yada, yada. And this kid was just turning around, pointing to the... Okay, I'll skip through this. A different view. The one kid shot at me. Here we are. The other kid shot twice, and then after that, they hopped over the fence. Ricci said his home has had previously been targeted by criminals. Burglars broke in. Okay. He said a group of criminals have been targeting homes in the neighborhood, driving around in a Charger with no license plate. Fine. The owner said that if it was not for his gun, they could have easily been killed. It saved our lives. He said he and his wife speculated that without the gun, they would have been in bigger trouble. He said living in a liberal city, some might discredit to crucify the gun owners. I know I didn't do anything wrong because I had two chances. I could have shot them both in the back. This is where I started getting suspicious. I know I didn't do anything wrong because I had two chances. I could have shot them both in the back. I chose not to, but in the video, it looks like, oh, they're running away. They weren't running. They were firing back at me. Okay, so he's getting fired back at and then chooses not to shoot these people who are firing back at him. Fine. But I've just gotten too cynical in my old age. It was the last part here. This is where I was like, okay, Gascon is screwing the cops so much he's not going to take up the case either way. Even if they do find these kids, Gascon's not going to care that they were shooting at some white guy. Ricci is originally from the Bronx, and he said the repeated crimes he has had to endure in LA has forced him to reconsider staying in the city, even the state. I came here for a better life. Here we go. The last line. This is not normal. It isn't worth it. I'd rather just go back to living in an apartment building in the Bronx. This would never happen there. Dude, I think we might be we might have different impressions of the Bronx. I'm getting very cynical. The video is incredible and shows you what being prepared, trained, and also it shows you that you should have a situational awareness at all times. Flip side, man, if it turns out that the DA Gascon investigates him and that this was something of a staged thing for viral, who the hell knows? Oh my goodness, that'd be one hell of a twist. Okay, Barnes is in the backdrop. Sir, are you ready to go? Robert, how goes the battle?
Good.
All right, now you might not be in the good mic, actually. Say that again.
Good.
Oh, okay, you are. Okay. Okay, Robert. Holy cows. What do we have on the menu for tonight? Oh, sorry. What's over your shoulder? Yes, you have a cold.
Yes, indeed. The book is called Reptile. There's a movie on Netflix. It's not bad. It's a similar name, but the book is written by some people who help trial lawyers present to juries, and their point is that the reptile part of the brain is often what really controls jury verdicts, and that it's important to understand that in order to be able to communicate effectively in how you narrate a story, as was presented very effectively this week in the Taking Care of Maya verdict that I only found out about from talking to Megan Fox. And we'll be talking about her case that got a good resolution as well against the Wauwatosa School Board. And then we have the Google trial, which is continuing to progress, that big antitrust case that's big. Matt Stoller and others are really doing a good job breaking it down on his Substack called Big. The Good Samaritan case out of New York, the Trump ballot case out of Minnesota, the De Niro assistant verdict in New York. Interesting little spin on that. Steve Bannon's appeal before the D.C. Circuit. Extradition concerning a U.S. soldier in Ukraine. The Young Thug trial and the admissibility of rap lyrics in that case. AI, two different contexts. One, AI software. Is AI basically stealing software code? And AI in schools, as a kid figured out how to use it effectively as a teenager to that doesn't have to use his imagination anymore. He can use AI to figure out what girls look like. Some parents not too happy about that. And then the Michigan football lawsuit.
All right, now I figure we have to at least we'll do the Trump stuff, or at least the latest updates on YouTube, and then we'll go over to Rumble, even if that takes one of our subjects out of order.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Robert, did you see, I don't know if you saw Friday, I had Marco Polo, Garrett Ziegler on from Marco Polo, talking about the Engeron nudies, which I guess are not really relevant. Stefanik filed a formal complaint against Judge Engeron in New York. I'll pull up the document tomorrow, but it looks like at least she's doing it as a citizen and not as a congresswoman. The case in Engeron, I mean, it's following its course. It's a load of crap. They're going to have the defense presented case next week. Do you have anything any observations on what we've witnessed last week in New York?
I mean, just there's nothing has developed that changed from my original take that this was a purely political case that would not be brought and has no precedent. They have someone who caused no harm to anybody that they're trying to bankrupt based on their interpretation is different than his interpretation of the value of his assets. I mean, value of assets that, and they're, I mean, at the worst case scenario, they're claiming Donald Trump got one over and got a good deal from the biggest insurance companies and Wall Street banks in the world. How is that even a crime or a bad act? Is ridiculous. And quite frankly, that claim is preposterous. They're very good. Those Wall Street banks and big insurance companies are very good at defending their own interest. And none of them have supported this. I mean, they have no victim at all. It's purely a political witch hunt with a political prosecutor who got elected saying she would go after Trump, and a judge whose bias was further exposed. Turns out his wife is sharing anti-Trump memes, and it turns out the judge is a bit of a weirdo, and he's obsessed with, in terms of posting, half-naked photos of himself to his classmates.
After he's done posting his good articles about how mean he's been to Eric Trump, he posts bonus torso pics. You saw that, right? It was Laura Loomer, I think, who broke the story about the wife's. It's not even an alternative Twitter. It's her Twitter account. Apparently denied having a Twitter account, perhaps because it was X at the time, and is like shitting on Alina Habba, who's outside of the courtroom saying criticizing her as a lawyer. The son. Apparently Engeron's son is in the courtroom and might have been getting some nepotism. I don't know exactly the details of that, but when I do, we'll go over it. It's crazy. Is Stefanik is the first person to file a complaint against this judge?
I guess so. And the credit to her, the congresswoman from upstate New York, that this is an embarrassment. There needs to be more action along those lines. There needs to be more action from New York State representatives along those lines. That, this whole thing is an utter embarrassment to the state of New York, utter embarrassment to the rule of law, utter embarrassment to the judicial branch as an institution. And the only question is whether somebody somewhere, someplace, at some time steps in to put a halt to it, and we'll find out.
All right, now Colorado, there's no verdict yet, but there were two judgments that came. I think it's Michigan and New Hampshire, if I'm not mistaken.
New Hampshire was just a Secretary of State decision. Minnesota was the only court that I'm aware of to issue a decision
on the removing Trump from the ballot.
Yeah.
Okay, and so they determined not to. They dismissed the suit, so they're not going to remove Trump from the ballot. At least the primary ballot. Open question still for the general.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, what the Minnesota court recognized is what has always been recognized as the case, which is that a primary ballot, party ballot, is determined by the party, not determined by the state. And so, unless Colorado's going to interpret the law differently, its own law differently, the same logic would apply in any of these cases or context. Okay. I think it's put it this way, they're going to have to do something they've never done before, which is remove someone from the ballot that's a popular candidate. No court has ever done that in American history. So, so you might get a rogue decision here or there. The question is whether the appeals and Supreme Courts will approve it, because it's just going way past all barriers. So you can get a liberal judge in D.C. or in New York or New York City or in Denver, Colorado, or in Minneapolis to issue crazy rulings because they're in overwhelmingly Democratic jurisdictions. They know there'll be no blowback. But getting a appellate court, Supreme Court, federal court to go along with that, again, they're going to have to do something that they've never done before.
It'll be the 50th time this year, Robert.
I know. I mean, that's the concern, is that the court system is so long gone that it will be complicit openly and overtly. I mean, it's one thing to not intervene, like the 2020 election. That's very different than affirmatively intervening and taking someone off the ballot. And my guess is that ultimately courts won't go along with that.
So the rationale is they can't take him off the primary ballot because that's a party decision, but open question for the general.
Right. They're going to decision wasn't before them.
Okay.
But it's highly unlikely. It just, because of the historical, there's no legal basis to do it. As the history reflects and represents. So and there'll be two ballot access issues. There'll be Trump's ballot access issues as Democrats try to prohibit him from getting access to the ballot, prohibit voters from picking him. And I'm sure that it's coming with Robert Kennedy. I'm sure there's going to be multiple efforts to keep Robert Kennedy off the ballot as an independent candidate. And they're going to use a lot of crazy laws that are on the books along those lines. Now, the problem is constitutionally, to give an example, the only two times a state official tried to keep a relatively popular candidate off the ballot was 1968. Both cases, state of Ohio, tried to keep George Corley Wallace off the ballot in 1968, and then they tried to keep John Anderson off the ballot in 1980. Both cases went up to the U.S. Supreme Court. Both cases, the U.S. Supreme Court ordered the state to put the candidate back on the ballot. And it's because of the recognition. Ballot access is supposed to be about voter choice. And the whole premise behind ballot access limitations are complete garbage. They're just, if you read the history, historically, we didn't have secret ballots. We had public ballots for the first century of America's history. The secret ballot, the Australian secret ballot, as it was then known, didn't come about until the end of the 19th century. And it was pitched as a way to help voters have anonymity in the process. And in fact, what it was always done, it was used as a tool to monopolize the ballot. The state didn't used to publish the ballot. Through most of American history at our beginning, the state never published a ballot. Private parties published ballots, gave it to you to take to the ballot. Well, what did that do? That empowered political machines, particularly political apparatus for illiterate voters and others, that someone they relied upon could give them a ballot and they could go in there with it. And the real goal of the secret ballot was not what they said it was, to protect voter anonymity. The real goal of the secret ballot was for the state to take over publishing of the ballot, prohibit private publishing of the ballot, to break the back of political machines and various populist rebellions in the end of the 1890s and early 1900s. And they said they would never use it to exclude people from the ballot, but by golly, they started doing exactly that by 1912. Now, the courts have recognized it's never been legal and constitutional, And that's why the courts that get away with it, they find some lame pretext that doesn't go up to the appellate food chain. And mostly you don't get meaningful adjudication on these cases. Justice Scalia, when he was alive, and others, and liberal judges agreed in some notes that came out decades later from their private sessions of the Supreme Court that the so-called telephone book excuse was complete garbage. And it says, man, if we don't exclude frivolous candidates from the ballot,
It'll be as long as a phone book.
yeah, as long as a phone, and that will, by golly, that will confuse the poor voter. And I've always said, telephone book doesn't confuse nobody. It's the most wonderful form of organization that exists on the planet.
Yeah, so long as it's in alphabetical order, it doesn't confuse anybody.
Exactly. It makes it easy. The only place that the most free ballot we've ever had in American modern history is the California gubernatorial race, recall race that Arnold Schwarzenegger won. I think there were like 82 or 90. I don't know. It didn't confuse anybody. The American people are not confused by having too many choices. And it's obvious hogwash, and that's why judges invent bogus doctrines. Like, well, you can't sue now because it's not ripe. Here's how I always put it. I learned from all the bogus standing excuses in election cases. If you sue in spring, it's not ripe. If you sue in summer, by golly, it's moot. And if you sue in fall, it's latches and you should be sanctioned. There's no good season to sue, it turns out. It's always too early or too late. There's no magical window in between. So, and they do that because they know they're full of it. They're just helping the two-party system exclude their opponents. When I represented Ralph Nader in 2004, it was the Democratic Party and the Republican Party conspiring to keep him off the ballot, which might seem odd to people, but it's because they recognize that breaking up the two-party system was more dangerous to each party than the other party was. George Bush and the Bushites were more worried about a Ralph Nader third-party movement than they were John Kerry winning. They would be willing to accept John Kerry winning to make sure Ralph Nader didn't build a third-party independent movement in the country. It was Republican judges and Republican secretaries of state that went to great efforts to keep Ralph Nader off the ballot, conspiring with Democratic corporate lawyers who had been working for 3 years to keep him off the ballot. So you're going to see that. But constitutionally, every honest judge knows it's bogus. So you get, judges who convince themselves that they use it's a self-justification rationalization. So they say, because we now print the ballot as the state, and because we print the ballot early for the convenience of soldiers overseas and other people, then we need this real early deadline. And we have to have all these signatures. Why exactly do you need all these signatures? Like, why do you need 100,000 plus signatures in some states to get on the ballot? By the way, many of these rules didn't exist in 1992. Ross Perot easily got on the ballot. That's when all of a sudden a bunch of states said, we need to make sure how people get on the ballot here in America.
But how many? It's not like they have, even in Canada, you have like 9 parties. You have the Green Party, the Marxist, NDP, Conservative, Liberal. At least, I can name 5 or 6. Anyways, how many have there been, Robert? There's only.
Well, you keep a lot of the states keep third parties from having ballot access. So Arizona is notorious for this. I've sued them repeatedly on behalf of the Green Party. They go to great lengths to try to keep the Green Party off the ballot. With the same thing, they make it very costly. So they make it so they limit who can circulate petitions, who can sign petitions, when you can circulate petitions, when you can sign petitions. And then, unlike our 2020 election, they're very strict about those signature matches. On average, over half of the signatures you gather will be struck down. Now, most of those, everybody knows, are legit, but it's just the person forgot how they signed or they changed. It's a marginal difference. That's why I was telling everybody, if they applied the same standards to get access to the ballot, to the 2020 ballots, there was no way they could say Biden won that election. Mm-hmm. None. And they all knew it. That's why they were pitching red herrings on Dominion and everything else, was to keep people away from looking at the glaring evidence that rebutted their claims of the best election ever. But yet all of this is, and so how you, like forever, and there's still some states that do this, by the way. They prohibit people who are not residents from circulating petitions. That's been illegal for forever, unconstitutional for forever. But you have to sue over and over again to get courts to stop it. And courts go to great lengths to try to avoid ruling on the topic. They, with their mootness, latches, ripeness, excuses, and pretext to hide and dodge and run for cover. It's just the normal, natural course of it. So the get him. In Colorado, it's to get him off the primary ballot. And the issue there is that should not be within a court's jurisdiction in the first instance. It's really not in the court's jurisdiction in any instance. The court should be in a place to put people on the ballot. It should never be in the place to take people off of it.
The Colorado, it's both though, right? It's primary and general.
Just primary, because he's not on the general election ballot yet. So they admit there's no lawsuit to bring. How do you bring a ballot challenge of a general election ballot that isn't formed yet? That won't be formed until the primaries are over. So at this point, the only ballot he's on is the primary ballot. That was Minnesota court's point. They're like, there's no basis to adjudicate something that we have no idea if it'll even happen. At least there's no cause of action. I wouldn't use the standing doctrine they use or the ripeness excuse they use. There's no cause of action to complain about somebody being on a ballot they're not on yet. There's just no cause of action.
I love people in the chat. I know it's sarcastic, but like, they're saying, what's a phone book? People don't realize once upon a time, if you knew someone's name, you could find their address, telephone number, postal code. You just go in and then you could find out.
Big yellow phone book.
Yeah, but we had the white pages for residential and yellow pages for commercial. And like everyone complains about privacy now. Someone could find out where you lived just by knowing your last name. And if it wasn't in the book, you could call the operator. You dial 0.
Your phone number.
Yeah, no, nuts. Okay, so no more for Trump. There was Judge Cannon, the Florida stuff. I mean, we'll come back to that.
It's clear that the Florida case is not going forward anytime soon, and they didn't want it to once they had the D.C. judge.
And who else? Then we got Chutkan's going to push that trial going forward as fast as she can. What else?
And I guess Trump is seeking for the first time. I don't know if the federal court proceeding has ever been televised, but Trump is seeking, and the media wants it to be televised. Interesting that Jack Smith doesn't, right? Well, what is Jack Smith so scared of? He's got a judge in his pocket, jury pool in his pocket, and yet he's terrified of the world watching that trial.
There is no good excuse. I mean, it's only suspicious, and it's only evidence of the corruption. I mean, they want to leak certain stuff that, while Trump is being gagged, and they don't want transparency for the trial itself. Oh my goodness, that would be epic. I'll make my wish that they actually.
Someone asked whether I can pronounce the Russian names in the phone book. I can't pronounce English names in the phone book, so the pronunciation is not my strong point.
Okay, we're going to do link to Rumble. We got 2,300 people watching here. How many do we have on Rumble? We were at 12,000. We're going to be at 16,000 soon. So let's see this number come down once. VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com for the after party. Robert, I won't go too late because you're under the weather, but we will get to the chats. And one last question before we head on over. I was listening to your Bourbon with Barnes as I was driving back from the third RNC debate. If you have a 30-second summary of what you thought of it, or in as much as the recaps of it.
The only guy that understands the Republican electorate is the guy is the Indian guy. That sums up where the Republican Party is as a party. That the only person who is talking to the actual voters is the guy that's the least connected to America and American politics, and that he can read an electorate and he can respond accordingly. Whereas the rest of them up there, are talking to donors, talking to publishers, talking to people who could hire them in the future, give them money in the future, not talking to voters, because voters don't want the George W. Bush party. And that they seem either clueless about that or don't care, because they're really running for their pocketbook. They're not running for the American people.
That is, people accuse Vivek of running for the VP, and I don't even think I'm not sure that he would accept it, even if that's was the case, but it's clear. Christie is running for his CNN career. Haley's running for whatever the hell. DeSantis didn't have the worst night, but you compare him to the energy of Vivek. And first generation, tech, youngest guy in the field, understands the points and has the...
I do understand why Dave Rubin likes DeSantis. He likes a guy in heels.
Oh, Barnes. Cue the horn.
Joke, Dave. Fun, David. But Trump was imitating DeSantis walking. So Trump is clearly, despite all the insanity of everything he's going through, he stays in good spirits. He remains unfazed.
You saw him at
his imitation of walking on your heels, which was funny.
I'm trying to think of. No, it was Trump at the UFC last night. I mean, the guy. It's incredible, the weight of the world on his shoulders and the weight of the government against you. and gets a cheer from everyone except for Bill Burr's wife. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to end it on YouTube, coming over to Rumble. And then hold on one second. Actually, if you want to go over straight to Locals, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. We had our 6th Locals conversation with a supporter, and it was fantastic on Friday. If anybody wants to go to vivabarneslaw.locals.com, you can watch it there. Now we're ending on YouTube because they no longer deserve our presence. The entire stream will be up tomorrow, and podcast version, yada, yada, yada. Rumble, 3, 2, 1.